Kant claimed that we experience morality as a conflict. Our moral duty pulls us in one direction, while our bodily desires and self-interest pull us in another. But humans are able to rise above their bodily desires and self-interest. They are able to act according to reason. Kant calls this ability our freedom or autonomy.
So Kant resists in advance against an authoritarian form of ethics. For example, ethics that tell you something should be done because it is commanded by, for example, the state or God or something. Those ethics are all non-autonomous. So Kant in general opposes non-autonomous ethics. That is, an ethics in which people don't give the law to themselves, but it is given by other authorities.
For Kant, moral right and wrong do not depend on the exterior consequences of our actions or on achieving happiness. Instead, right and wrong depend on the interior choices of reason. Moral goodness lies inside us, in our will, the ability of our reason to choose for itself. In Kant's words,
"It is impossible to think of anything in the universe, or even beyond it, that is good without qualification, except a good will. A good will is good not because of the actions it carries out or the effects it brings about, nor does goodness depend on its ability to achieve certain results. A good will is good simply in virtue of its willing. That is, its goodness lies in itself."
For Kant, to act according to reason is to act as we believe all humans should act. It is to follow rules we believe it is everyone's duty to follow. Kant laid out his ideas on ethics in a short book, The Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals. Here he introduces some new terms. A maxim, he says, is a rule that one person follows. A universal law is a rule that applies to everyone. Kant summarizes his ethics in a principle he calls the categorical imperative.
Act only on those maxims that you would be willing to have become universal laws.
The categorical imperative is forbiddingly abstract when you first hear it. The maxim of your act is just the rule that you would be following if you did a certain thing. Now, suppose I'm thinking about lying. I ask myself, would I be willing to have people follow the rule that I would be following all the time? What rule would I be following? If I'm lying because there's some advantage in it to me, maybe the rule would be tell the truth except when there's some advantage in it to you, and then you can lie. Would I be willing to have everyone do that all the time? Well, imagine what that would be like. It would be a situation in which you could never rely on what other people would say. So as a reasonable person, I couldn't want other people to follow the rule that I would be following, so I can't follow it myself. That's essentially what the categorical imperative requires.
One way to interpret that is like the golden rule. You should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or more normatively, it is right for you to act towards somebody else only if it would be right for them to do that to you if the situation were reversed. And that part of Kant's theory seems very plausible and may be one of these things that all moral views should accept.
Kant also asks us to reflect on the extent to which we are making exceptions of ourselves in the way we're dealing with others. That is, am I doing something that I would not want others to do, that I would not be willing to have everyone else do? And I think that's another important question to be asked about any kind of behavior that we're thinking about. Is this the kind of behavior that I would be willing to have everyone do? Is this the sort of thing that everyone could do? Is this the sort of thing everyone has a right to do?
One of the most puzzling things about Kant's ethics is that he offers more than one formulation of the categorical imperative. The official version of the categorical imperative is that you should act on the maxims that you would be willing to have become universal laws, or act only on such maxims. But then a few pages later, he repeats the categorical imperative, and suddenly it has a very different form.
Act in such a way that you never use human beings, yourself or others, only as means, but always treat them as ends.
What does that mean, concretely? Well, it means that I should, first of all, value your interests as important in themselves, so that I don't want to do anything that would be harmful to you. I want to do only things that will be helpful to you. But in addition to that, I have to consider that you are a person with your own judgments about what's good for you and what's harmful to you. And that's something that I should respect too.
And that means that we should treat people as they consent to be treated. So that always in any moral situation, one important moral factor is how is my activity impacting on the ability of these people to consent to what I am doing.
If I make all the judgments about what's good for you and act accordingly, I'm treating you as a kind of object. I'm not taking into account that you are a subject. You are a person with your own ideas and your own judgments, just as I have my ideas and judgments.
Kant's two versions of the categorical imperative sound very different, yet they are closely connected to the same social ideal from the Enlightenment. This is the idea that we all belong to a community of free and equal persons.
What he's trying to get us to understand is that what's at issue when we talk about ethics is, as he puts it himself, a matter of acting always and deciding how to act always in a way that involves treating yourself as just one fellow citizen with all the other fellow citizens in the Commonwealth, when what he calls the Commonwealth of ends, that every human being is an end in him or herself, and we have to live together in this kind of moral democracy.
Kant's ethical theories have been criticized from various directions. Some have questioned whether people are truly free to act contrary to their desires and self-interest. Others have observed that real situations are complex and can make it all but impossible to define what maxim a person may be acting on. Some have called Kant's notion of a reasoning being who is independent of everyone an atomistic view of the self, a fiction. Real selves are always shaped by social circumstances. Others have doubted whether people who would be widely recognized as moral are indeed acting from a sense of duty.